And now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our esteemed guest tonight. And I'm going to start with Virgil Ortiz. Virgil's work combines art, decor, fashion, video, and film. He is one of the most innovative potters of his time, and his works are exhibited in museum collections around the world. The Netherlands, in Paris, the Smithsonian Institution's National Museum of the American Indian, the Virginia Museum of Fine Art, and the Denver Art Museum, just to name a few. Ortiz, the youngest of 6 children, grew up in a creative environment in which storytelling, collecting clay, gathering wild plants, and producing figurative pottery were part of everyday life. His grandmother, Lorencita Herrera, and his mother, Serafina Ortiz, were both renowned Pueblo potters and part of an ongoing matrilineal heritage. Ortiz keeps Cochiti pottery traditions alive, but transforms them into a contemporary vision that embraces his Pueblo history and culture and merges it with apocalyptic themes, science fiction, and his own storytelling. Although Ortiz has projects in varying mediums, including a new collection of lithographs created at Tamarind Institute, Ortiz is first and foremost a potter, and he says, "Clay is the core of all my creations. My work centers on preserving traditional Cochiti culture and art forms. It's important to recognize that Pueblo communities are very much alive and have a level of vitality that speaks to generations of strength, persistence, brilliance, and thriving energy." And you will hear more about Virgil from him and Monica. Monica Buckle is a consultant, curator, and scholar specializing in Native American arts and culture, both traditional and contemporary. She is an enrolled member of the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma. Her focus extends to public relations in promoting emerging and established Native American, First Nations, and Indigenous artists. Monica holds a master's degree in art business from Sotheby's Institute of Art in New York. She's the owner of Monica Buckle Gallery, LLC, and she has worked in various roles in the art field and the community, such as an analytical research volunteer with Lord Cultural Resources, a global cultural consulting practice with museum planning and development services, a visual arts coordinator and PR specialist with the American Indian Community House, a nonprofit serving the needs of New York City, a development committee member with the Fine Art Museum of Sedona. She serves as on the board of directors with the Mesa Verde Foundation in Colorado, and she oversees riding and horsemanship sessions for youth, adults, and veterans with disabilities and challenges at Pegasus Therapeutic Riding in Brewster, New York. So please, without further ado, welcome Monica Buckle.
Well, thank you, Jody, for the wonderful introduction. It's such a pleasure to be here with you and everyone who's joined in virtually, so thank you. I would also like to thank the director and chief curator, Jill Dupuy, and also I would like to thank Tisha Goyo, Virgil's wonderful manager. I'm appreciative to the Lowe Art Museum for creating the space for this conversation and studio tour with Virgil Ortiz, which we will get to in a moment. I would also like to thank the University of Miami's Native American and Global Indigenous Studies Working Group. The university's Native American and Global Indigenous Studies Working Group elevate Indigenous voices and perspectives across the University of Miami. The museum and the university reside on Seminole and Miccosukee territory. I'm an enrolled member of the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma through my mother's heritage. There is a common thread that connects Native Americans and Indigenous peoples across Turtle Island, which is reverence for the land, existing in harmony with all living beings, and honoring the traditions of those who have walked before. It is a wonderful thing to acknowledge Miami, a beautiful place so many of us know and love, and to move forward recognizing the Seminole and Miccosukee tribes and communities who rightfully inhabit South Florida and are its present-day stewards. The museum has an impressive collection of over 19,000 objects. Represented within the collection are significant Native American artworks, particularly Pueblo pottery, which brings us to Virgil Ortiz, one of the most renowned and innovative contemporary Pueblo potters. Virgil has revolutionized the Indigenous art world, redefining Native American art. His notable career has created a path for a new generation of Native artists. Virgil's works are steeped in tradition, using the same technique his family and Pueblo people have done for millennia. New Mexico is home to 19 pueblos. Virgil sources organic materials from Cochiti Pueblo, where he lives and works. Virgil has an intimate connection to the land, which lends itself to his creative process. Virgil's pottery conveys traditional Pueblo motifs and designs, while also expressing themes that address social and political issues and topics considered taboo. A core element in Virgil's works is the Pueblo Revolt of 1680. In 1680, the then 46 pueblos united under the leadership of Pope, who was a medicine man and ceremony keeper from the Pueblo of Okeowinge, translating to place of the strong people. They fought in solidarity and overthrew their Spanish oppressors, driving out conquistadors and Franciscan priests. For 12 years, the Pueblo people had control of their territories. Though New Mexico remained a Spanish colony, the revolt helped in the reduction of atrocities that were inflicted on the Pueblo peoples. Virgil has taken historic Pueblo Revolt warriors and has transformed them into futuristic superheroes and guardians that continue to fight for justice. Virgil's realm of Indigenous futurism features characters that revisit the land, which has been plagued by nuclear fallout. They are adorned with gas masks since Earth's atmosphere is no longer safe to breathe. They are armed with weaponry, alluding to the artillery of the conquistadors. A central character to Virgil's Pueblo Revolt narrative is Taboo, the blind archer, which Virgil will discuss later. Much of Native America is matriarchal, especially Pueblo communities. Virgil's themes emphasize female empowerment and leadership. Additionally, Virgil has been at the forefront of LGBTQ and Two-Spirit initiatives and advocacy. He has made several pots reflecting LGBTQ and Two-Spirit subject matter. He is also known for his prophecy pots that concern political issues. His repertoire is vast, yet all his works masterly converge together. Virgil is ever evolving and has developed his pottery aesthetic into high fashion. His fashion is inspired by traditional Pueblo regalia, which are still worn for ceremonies and dances. Virgil has taken traditional dress and interpreted into contemporary clothing and wearable art. He had a successful collaboration with Donna Karan, and last year, Virgil had a fashion studio workshop at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Most recently, he was featured in Vogue magazine alongside other Indigenous artists. I could spend all night discussing everything that is so fabulous about Virgil and his art. However, we all are here to actually listen to Virgil, so I would love to welcome Virgil to the event.
Virgil, you're on mute.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you everybody for joining, and thank you so much for this opportunity to share the story of the artwork and everybody at the Lowe Museum. Just thank you everybody for this opportunity.
Well, Virgil, now that we're here together and we're all connected, I just want to also thank you, Virgil, because you're such a busy person and I can hardly keep up with your projects. So this is really a treat for everyone. I just figured, why don't we just get into some questions before we begin the studio tour? You know, so much of your art is indicative of your heritage. So how has your heritage influenced you as an artist?
Oh, definitely. Like being when I was born like born into a family of potters on our mother's Separina side of the family. So our grandmothers all made pottery. So it was the art and drum making that our dad did was always around us every day. And our siblings, our cousins, everybody. I don't think, I mean, I didn't even know that it was art being created on a daily basis, to tell you the truth, but it was just very cool to be able to be immersed in this world and to really not even think twice about, creating pottery with the traditional methods and materials that Cochiti Pueblo uses.
Yeah, now this is a beautiful photo. Now, isn't this your family for one of the feast dances?
Yeah, this happens, our feast days on July 14th, and happens annually every year. And this was in our family home down in the plaza. So like right after for our little lunch break, everybody comes in, takes a break and catches our breath, and we took this picture. But yeah, normally, I mean, it's like 110 degrees outside or something, everybody's sweating and trying to catch our breath. But yeah, it's just awesome to have ceremonies that we miss so much that bring the whole Pueblo and community together.
When was the last time? Because with the pandemic, of 2020 that we're still in, has your Pueblo or any of the other Pueblos had their ceremony or dances?
I'm not sure about other Pueblos, but like I have a job off the Pueblo like 9 months out of the year, so I'm gone. And at that time, I was teaching at ASU and having a residency out in Arizona when all this began. And my sister had informed me that they closed the Pueblo down like at the beginning of March. And it was a tight lockdown, which I'm very thankful for. It kept a lot of people safe here. And since then, yeah, we haven't had any ceremonies or dances. So yeah, the whole Pueblo misses it.
Yeah, I bet. So now moving from, heritage, your works are from a time-honored practice. So why don't we go into detail about your creative making process and the materials you use?
Yeah, definitely. Like we mentioned earlier, was that like everything that I do create is all centered and held together by traditional Cochiti Pueblo pottery. And that meaning that we go dig our clays, our materials, everything that we use to create the pottery. So growing up, like we've always went with our families to do this. So right now I'm just trying to teach whoever wants to learn, like my nieces and nephews, anybody in the Pueblo that wants to learn this process is welcome to come dig clay with us and prepare all the materials. And these short videos are some of the process. Like when we dig the clay, we have to process the clay and dry it out. When it comes out of the earth, it's wet and damp, and you can't work with it because it's too rich and pure, and you have to dry it out over a year. And then at this point for this video, it shows me how I'm cracking up the clay into like 1/4-inch size pieces, and have a plastic bin there that with many layers of the crushed clay. So what I'm doing is crushing the clay and then slowly building layers and adding water to it. And this allows the clay to rehydrate itself and evenly, because if you don't do it this way, you're going to have pure clay, spots of clay in your clay body, and that will produce cracks or exploding during the firing. So yeah, we got to just take our time while we prepare the traditional materials. So this is just showing how the layers soak up the clay. And once it's soaked, it's filled up, then we usually let it soak for at least a week. Starts pulling away from the plastic bin, and that's when it's time, when it's ready to be mixed with the temper, the pumice stone that we also collect from Cochiti land.
How old were you when you first started this process?
I mean, it was just funny because our mom would buy pieces from us, my siblings and I, and she had saved some pieces, and I was like maybe 6 years old that we had some of the pieces, and it's, I mean, you just grow up with it, and I didn't even know, like I said earlier, like I didn't know it was an art form, but you know, this was always around me, and you know, our parents always encouraged us to whatever type of media that we worked in, drawing, whatever. And then me, instead of playing outside or whatever, I'd rather be inside working on artwork.
Nice. And we have another video for the process coming up.
This is the pumice stone. Once we go to a different part of the Pueblo to collect this stone, and it comes out of the earth very, very white and very powdery. So usually my nephews help me collect this material, bring it home, put on my combat boots, dance on it, crush it up, and it's already fine when we do it at this process, but we have to put it through at least 3 sieves, screens to get it as fine as like baby powder. So this is the process that you have to mix with the pure clay, so it helps with the shrinking when it's drying, and also it gives the clay body a lot of strength. So this is exactly what the type of materials that we've always used, and you know, like since learning from our mother and grandmother, never always used the same materials that way. This is the, once we get both of the materials processed, then when the clay is ready to mix, and we're very protective of how we use the clay. We try to use every last bit of it. So like if I know if I'm going to make a large pot or say one figure, then I'm only mix enough to make that piece. So we don't really have any type of measurements of how to mix temper with the clay. It's just like when you're mixing it, then you run your finger through it and you can tell the texture of the clay.
I think we lost V for a second, but he will be logging back.
I'm back.
In. Good.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard, like especially in the Pueblo, because we don't have any high-speed internet, but that's to be expected. So, okay, I'm back. But I was talking about the clay. So once we get all that done, mix the ball of clay, and then we sculpt the pieces. And at this point now, the wild spinach paint is our source that we go to for making our black paint. And Cochiti is traditional pottery pieces are the traditional colors are black, white, and red. So the clay body's red, it's slipped with white or wild spinach paint, and this is how we make it. So it's a process. So I invite my sisters and all my nieces and nephews to help us make it, because once the plant has its purple flowers on it, that's like a alarm clock to go pick it. So we go and get the plants and bring it back and just collect only the leaves itself, and then fill like 5 big pots of water, boil it for 7 days. Once it all starts to condense and evaporate, then we're left with about a good gallon of paint, like what you see right now. And at that point, we go bring it indoors and continue it boiling.
Okay, and this is Virgil's firing process. This is a traditional Cochiti way of firing. They use cedar wood and cow manure, interestingly. And so the pot, once Virgil has formed everything and he's created the design for the pot, this goes underneath everything that you're seeing here on the slide. And as you can see in one of the images, it's a big effort, and Virgil's cousins come out to help. And there's someone here holding like a poster board, and that's kind of to protect the firing from any winds or draft, because it's such a delicate process. And interestingly, there's not any kind of thermometer gauge with the fire like other wood firing for ceramics or pottery. You always have the temperature to know when, okay, it's ready or it's too high. This is just all inherently learned from the time you're a child, if you're born into a Pueblo pottery family. So it's really fascinating. Okay, good. I was just filling everyone in about the process for the firing.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Are you there, Virgil? Okay, well, I think he's in Virgil Ortiz world, you know, it's a whole different realm. So sometimes he's like morphing in and out. So, so it is a family like affair to get this together. And we were speaking with Virgil a couple of days ago, and I asked the question, what time of year typically is it when you guys fire it up? And he said some people do it in winter, spring, early summer. However, definitely not monsoon season in New Mexico. If any of you are familiar with the
Yeah,
South.
now I can hear you.
Okay, great, good. You're back.
Definitely, yeah, definitely.
Okay,
Definitely
awesome.
not during the monsoon season. Definitely not during the monsoon season, because it affects the black paint, the wild spinach. So we try to do it mostly during the when I get back from like working out of state and all. And it's usually I get back in May through August, and those are the times like when we all get together and try to fire the traditional pieces. But yeah, it's using aspen, cedar, cow manure, the chicken wire, and we basically fire in the back of our the backyard, and we have to burn the ground first to make sure that it's bone dry. And then we have a steel grate that's about 5 inches off the ground, and then another Pumice Stone that goes on top of it, and that's where we place our pots or our figure, and we only fire one piece at a time. So once we have the pot there, whatever we're firing, then we build a chicken wire cage around it. And again, it has like maybe 8 inches around the piece. And then we pack up the bone dry cow manure, and it looks like an igloo at that point. And then we gather the fill, light it from all sides. And usually we fire early in the morning when the wind is calm. And once it starts burning, it would burn like maybe about an hour or so. Then the cow manure ignites, and once you can see that the cow manure is being the fuel that's really burning, then we stop adding the wood to the whole fire. So then the cow manure is burning, and it burns from the outside inward, and that creates our kiln. So we just have to wait. And as you can see, one of my nephews crashed out on the back of a truck because we've been firing since early in the morning, and like we probably have fired like 4 pieces at that point. But yeah, it's a process that a lot of the non-Indigenous ceramicists would ask me, like, what cone do you fire to? And I had no idea that there was parameters that you could use, or, you know, but I probably would say I've never measured the temperature before, and I don't want to, just because our parents never did, or our grandparents never did. So that's just the traditional way that we do it. So whereas compared to the high fire clay, I also I love to work with that too, because I could go to a store in any city and go to a ceramic store, and all of a sudden they have bags that are completely full of different types and textures of clay all ready to go. And, you know, we don't have to prepare a whole year to make that clay. And you do your classes, your workshops, and then dry. Then all of a sudden you have a kiln that you're able to just program, like basically set it and forget it. So there's like two completely types of different types of work that I work with, but everything again circulates, and like the traditional clay is like the heart and soul of everything I do. So, but then again, like to use a high fire clay is really awesome because you could go larger, you could go different colors, you can make it look like it's metal. And it just gets me excited because it really fits into all the different types of characters that I'm working with. And also like during the winter time, one of my nephews, Kyle, he built us metal containers that is a lot easier to fire with as well when it's colder out. So that shows the differences like between the Calminer on the left and the can on the right.
Virgil, typically, how long does it take for one of the fires to burn for the pot to be complete?
I would say like maybe like 4 hours or so. It just depends. Like you don't know. And then again, like there's no way that you could see the actual piece. So when we light it, we're all praying that we don't hear a thud or a popping sound because all our pieces have to be like a little bit of a 1/4 inch thick. And if you happen to have an air bubble in it, and it's like, the more I work with high fire clay, I'm learning that the thicknesses it matters a lot, and especially in our traditional work, because it once it heats up, it expands and contracts really quickly. So all the walls have to be uniform, and yeah, so like you don't know how long. Sometimes it takes longer because you have a bigger piece. You know, the more fire it has to go to fire it, but it just depends what pieces you're firing. So it always a time difference.
Great. Now, the 19 pueblos of New Mexico are each known for their own distinct style of pottery. Your pueblo, Cochiti, is famous for storyteller pottery, essentially pottery that tells a story. How does the tradition of storyteller pottery correlate to your art?
I mean, this is like a style that was born probably in the 50s, I would say, by a woman by the name of Helen Cordero. So she had mimicked her grandfathers, the grandmothers telling stories around a fire. And this is our way of passing down our tradition, telling our stories. And then, so you would see grandmothers or grandfathers with kids holding a bunch of kids. And then also people started making animals doing the same thing too. But what I had learned this process, and then I really just started creating my own characters, and they didn't look nothing like what I was taught of the traditional storytellers. And my parents they're just like, okay, it's okay, you know, make whatever you want, like create your own, what's in your head and your characters, your different kinds of animals. And a collector by the name of Robert Gallegos out of Albuquerque would do buying trips to different pueblos, and he had came to our house. He knew me as a kid, and he was asking my parents like, where's this kid getting all these different designs from that it's completely different from, you know, your family's work? And they're like, we're just supporting him, he's experimenting. And he said, why don't you bring him down you guys all come down to the showroom in Albuquerque. And it's the first time that we went down to Albuquerque, went into his showroom, and we were blown away. Our mouths almost hit the ground because this was insane. We never had seen pictures of historic Cochiti figurative pottery, but it turned out he had the largest collection of it at that time.
Wow.
And all the pieces that I was experimenting looked exactly like these historic pieces. So it was, you know, my parents were like, oh, what was going on here? Like, I don't know, but they pulled me out and they told me, remember this day, you know, we didn't teach you any of this, but the clay is talking to you and through you. So just remember you know, just keep your mind open and, you know, do what you're doing, and we support you. So now I had that Bob Gallegos as a resource to go look at all these historic figurative pottery. And it was just amazing to see all of these and learn like what the subject matter was. And it's all based on social commentary. So a lot of these pieces, you'll see like really fantastical kind of figurative pottery that were caricatures of like circus sideshows or opera singers. And, you know, some things that you would see in a circus would be like the Siamese twin or tattooed body, or just all these different types of half human, half animal figurative pottery. So that was right up my alley, and like as far as like me making characters, so that was perfect for me to continue and try to revive this tradition that people don't know about. So this is what you see now, and I'm not creative. I mean, I'm not like these aren't my original creations, because I just want everybody to understand about these pieces and why they were created in the 1800s. And like, you know, these were our creative ancestors, and I'm just trying to revive exactly what they did. And a lot of our masters that are were learning about this as well. It was just so awesome to see them make this type of pottery too. And, you know, I knew I was on the right track too. I knew that was part of my life, and why I'm here is to revive these pieces and bring this type of pottery and art back to Cochiti.
Well, thank you, Virgil. And it's wonderful that you had your parents and your family's blessing to kind of break the mold with the traditional storyteller pottery. And I think that kind of segues into the next question of how women in your family influenced you and your art.
Yeah, I mean, I have one brother, he passed away, and 4 older sisters. I'm the youngest of 6. And just growing up, I mean, no matter on a daily basis or for ceremonies, dances, and all, I would always wake up to our mother and our sisters cooking and bringing the whole family together in like a matrilineal pueblo. Like it would be my mom to be the one to remind our dad, like, you're supposed to do it like this, and, you know, don't forget about this. And I mean, I was just like, whoa, like our mom knows most of this, and it's just really important to make sure that women are brought back and held in high regards and acknowledged for the amount of work they do in our pueblo. So when I was creating all these characters, women empowerment was in mind, and Taboo is a name that is the main character. And this is her that you see on the screen right now. She's the leader of the Blind Archers, but I wanted to make that the main character a woman, just to give the younger women in our pueblos a superhero, and to really know that they have the strength and power, and, like, you know, they are very special. So it's just my part of women empowerment storytelling.
Beautiful. Would you want to discuss these Mask the Runners series? Okay, well, I think Virgil popped back off, and I'm sure he'll pop back in momentarily. This is a new series of masks that Virgil has created called The Runners. And the runners fall into the whole Pueblo Revolt of 1680 narrative. And historically, during the revolt and the uprising, the then 46 Pueblos of New Mexico, the way they communicated which Pueblos would be joining the revolt was by knotting sweet grass. So you have the knots in the sweet grass for each Pueblo. So all the Pueblos knew how many were unified in the revolt. So that's represented here at the bottom of the mask. And so it's just one of
that's how they pull it off. It was really awesome. Sorry, I keep skipping out, but
don't be sorry.
Really
it's
awesome
all right.
Just showing I mean, the runners were the most important part. How they sent the runners from the northern to southern pueblos. At each pueblo, they dropped down knotted cords and instructed the people to untie a knot every morning. So when the last knot was untied, that's when they pushed out the invaders. So the runner characters are the most one of the most important characters in the whole storytelling of the Pueblo Revolt.
Great. And then your art is not only beautiful, but it can also be viewed as activism. How does your art convey taboo topics and subject matter?
It helps a lot. You know, I always say art is therapy, and art saved my life, kept me out of trouble, and it really helped me tell stories, like using it how our ancestors did as social commentary. So it goes from any point of telling the stories of the Pueblo to political pieces like you see on screen now. And this was part of a series called my it's called Rise Up, and it was part of all of my, what did we call it earlier? I forget what you called it, but just to really my prediction
The
pot series.
prophecy.
Yeah, prophecy. And I made these like about 10 or 9 pieces, and some of them were pops, but I had made these in 2016, and I had never been politically engaged at all, but just learning from the person that was running for office, I kind of got all these premonitions and like what was going to happen. So I wanted to use our traditional way of making the pottery to tell the story. So these was before the inauguration happened. This was like around November time, and it was when the DAPL was going on, the Dakota Access Pipeline that was going on, and I thought I really wanted to use the clay piece to comment on it. So this pot is one pot, and like the first image that you see on the left, he's holding bundles of cash, excited. He's riding the black snake, which represents the oil pipelines. But little does he know the snakes are coming to bite him back in the back of his head. The middle pot is when, all the fracking that goes on, how much harm it does to the earth. And slowly the snakes are infiltrating the body and eating him from the inside out. And the last image on the right-hand side was, I had seen a bunch of women protesting with their hands up. And this was before the Women's March happened. And one of my main predictions was that it would be women that would have the honor to remove him. So this is why I painted a woman's hand holding him by the jacket and tossing him out. So this is just a part of like using the storytelling onto pottery pieces, and it's capturing the caricatures in clay and telling the story using art.
Well, and also if we could just go back to the previous slide. Thank you. That's great. What does the snake represent for Pueblo people, like the water serpent?
It's a protector, and it's like it's a lot on our regalia and our buffalo dance kilts, and also on pottery as well too. And it means a lot of, I don't know exactly what it means for other Pueblos, but it's probably more or less the same, a protector.
Okay, great. And also going back to the Dakota Access Pipeline, just a little update for the viewers. This past summer, a federal judge had actually ordered the stop of flow of oil for the Dakota Access Pipeline, and the pipeline went through the Standing Rock Sioux Nation. So you probably heard it in the news, Standing Rock. So with all of the attention, media news outlets, because of all the communities across Indian country went out to Standing Rock to draw attention to it. It's a victory, a huge win for Indian country that the federal judge side on for the natives and for the tribes out there, which is awesome. Okay, next slide,
that's really
please.
good.
Okay, Virgil, do you want to speak about this alternative piece?
Yeah, sure. Alternative piece is part of my Taboo series, ongoing series. And I'm using the art to talk about really hard to talk about subjects, basically. So this was about the LGBTQ community, as well as just like incorporating of how Indigenous people hold these two-spirit people how in high regards. And I was trying to figure out how I could use one pot to tell that story. And it was fun to really think about this whole piece. But this character, the second from the left, her name is Wewa, and he's a two-spirit person from Zuni Pueblo. And I think this iconic image was taken in DC, like in the late 1800s.
I think we have a close-up of Wewa. If we could move to the next slide, please. Great, there we are.
Yeah, definitely. And it was just awesome to, like how Indigenous people hold these two-spirit people in high regards. And then all these other characters, I was like, okay, how can I explain it to like in the 80s when I grew up and the music was around, all these iconic 80s performers and musicians, singers. So then like I wanted to put them all together because they had to fight to be accepted in the community, but they became icons. And so there's like RuPaul, there's Boy George, Pete Burns, these characters that had a successful career and still do, but then also put them next to Wewa, and to show that, you know, like even the present day, all of these people are going in, I mean, the world is going in reverse, and like they're have to fight for equality and to, you know, not to get hurt when in public. So I just want to remind everybody that this is these people are special and they're one of us, you know, like, so I think this pot explains that whole timeline of it.
I think it's magnificent because when I first viewed this, I couldn't get over that this is one pot. It's unbelievable how you're able to paint this and just the different dimensions for just one single pot. So that's incredible.
I think that took me like 3 times as long as a normal pot because each side is different, each angle is different. So that was hard to figure out.
And let's see, we have the canteen perfect selfie.
Yeah, this perfect selfie was is based about the social networks and how people try to get the perfect selfie, and they're dressing up and trying to like be somebody that who they're really not. So that's like the image on the left, like with masks and wearing all kinds of costuming. He has a cell phone in his hand, is trying to capture that perfect selfie. But when you flip the canteen around, I portrayed the internet as a hand coming out and asking for more, and then the person is nude, and it's just basically asking the person, how much are you willing to put on the internet? Because once you do, like, it's on there for life. So everybody has to really think about what they put on the internet. So and be careful, right? So that's what the perfect selfie canteen is about.
Yeah, well, that's a really good message and totally appropriate for present day. Now, besides just how amazing your pottery is, you know, since the Lowe Art Museum's in Miami, and Miami is also synonymous for its design district and fashion, how have you transitioned from pottery into high fashion?
Just working in different mediums, it's out of necessity because I was like, okay, cool. Like I'm working on telling the story of the Pueblo Revolt. So I'm creating all these different characters, and I can't just go shop for these costumes because they never existed. So I had to create them myself. So they eventually start to lend itself onto the designs and the geometrical designs of our family pottery designs. And like, I'll tweak them so that I'll be able to put them onto garments like this. And that was an experience to work with Don and Karen and just learn the whole process of manufacturing garments. So it just opened my mind. And then also, and I think this was in 1999. It's been a while now, but it's just awesome to see now, like Vogue magazine recognizing Indigenous artists and all of their beadwork and all, you know, people like Elias, Not Afraid, and Jane Okuma. I mean, these artists are the next generation, and I love to be able to connect with them and to create with them, maybe some collaborations, and just see how Indigenous fashion designers are coming into the mainstream now. And again, like for example, like the last black and white image, that's called the V-Maze design. So it's taking my own, my personal aesthetic design, but also pulling from our family pottery designs, combining it, and then making what everybody should be wearing today, like the face mask to protect not only ourselves, but our friends, our family, and to, you know, just always keep thinking about, I mean, what's the next thing that I could put designs on, or, you know, like just learning the next medium, photography, video, whatever, out of necessity. But it helps, you know, like, and I always tell people online, like, they're welcome to give me a ring, and if they need help or suggestions or whatever, like our team is, we've been doing this for a while now, so we have a little bit more knowledge of how to protect our intellectual property and how to, if you plan to make your life as an artist, to be able to protect yourself and to learn that whole next level of creativity and make it work and make a living at it. So again, anybody's welcome to pick my brain if they want to.
Oh, Virgil, just quickly before we move on to the studio tour, I wanted to ask you, who can wear Virgil Ortiz creations? Who do you know, is it open for the public to wear it, so forth?
Yeah, of course, everybody is invited to wear it, you know. That's a good question too, because people ask that about the Made in Native America registered logo and mark, and that is, that's welcome to everybody, but the whole purpose behind that was to exactly what it means, Made in Native America. So I have all my manufacturing, from the printing, the cut and sew, the materials, the packaging, the dye houses, everything is made here in the States, and it's just my team's way of keeping all of the is. And we've had that since over 2 decades. And it was funny because I had to go into a little court battle with a non-Indigenous person to get rights for the registered logo. And I had to send in, finally I had to send in my my CIB, which is our blood quantum, right?
Oh gosh.
And I was awarded that. I was awarded that registered mark. So, but yeah, it's and it helps. Like a lot of the people that I do work with, I try to incorporate, you know, Indigenous people, and so yeah, of course, everybody's.
So everyone can wear it, non-Indigenous, non-Native as well.
Of course. Yes.
Great. That's wonderful. And then I think we just have, before the studio tour, I quickly want to mention that the Montclair Art Museum is having a fine art raffle, and it's one of Virgil's pots, and the proceeds are benefiting one of Cochiti Pueblo's Children Center. So it's for a wonderful cause. You can visit the Montclair Art Museum. It's on their website, and that's wonderful. So Virgil, I see that we're kind of running a bit, you know, we're running a bit out of time. So why don't we just take us on a tour, you know, show us your studio.
Okay, great. I'm going to shut off my computer and then get on my phone. So give me a minute.
Sure, of course.
So while Virgil's signing back on, we invite you to type in any questions. Thank the people that have so far, but if you have any questions, we'll try to ask Virgil the questions while he's walking around the studio. Thank you.
And I think this goes back to what Virgil was saying, as art as a means to heal. Virgil is not only such a well-renowned artist and designer, but he loves to teach, and he is such a mentor for so many up-and-coming artists and youth, native and non-native. And one thing that's so wonderful about Virgil is he incorporates them into his exhibitions or into his studio. He wants their perspective. It's not necessarily kind of, you know, the master and the apprentice. Virgil really gives, and also he receives so much in the process with the students he's mentoring, and some amazing collaborations have come out of it. Virgil teaches at ASU, Arizona State University, and also at Colorado College. So it's wonderful because Virgil also works with youth that may not fit into conventional education, and perhaps youth that is kind of like non-conforming. So it's wonderful that he sees the potential, the talent in them. And I think that's one reason I'm such a huge supporter of Virgil, is because he really gives back when it comes to his art. I know we're all just waiting for him to take a studio tour. And of course, there's so many questions here. I don't know if we'll be able to get to them all. Also, another interesting point about Virgil and the creative process is, one thing I found very touching was when he sources the clay from Cochiti Pueblo, he actually asks Mother Earth if he's allowed to take the clay.
All right, I'm here.
Okay, great. I was just talking about how you ask permission to take the clay from Mother Earth before you dig it out to create the pot.
Yeah, definitely. We have to respect her. She provides all the materials for us and to take care of us. So that's how our parents always did it. So just trying to teach my family and everybody that comes to me to go get the clay the same way our parents did. But here's another part of my studio. I was hand painting a leather coat for my friend Tatanka Means. So he's an actor, and he gave me his jacket, and I hand painted these designs on it.
Mhm. That's beautiful. Well, he's lucky. So lucky. Isn't Tatanka Means, is he the nephew or cousin of Russell Means?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Here's the piece for the Canada's Children's Learning Center. I was photographing it, but this is the piece that I'm working with the Montclair Art Museum for their art raffle, and I'm very happy to be working with this Montessori school that teaches our kids our different curriculums and our language, and also the different ceremonies and all. So it's a very important program.
Virgil, I have a couple questions in here. Someone would like to know, what is the significance of the cross and large dots in your pieces?
The cross is probably, they're talking probably about the turkey track that looks like an X, but you'll see that in all of my any pieces that I create. But that's a turkey track, and that's a symbol for good luck. So that I mean, if you're to try to track a turkey or a roadrunner, it's almost impossible because you don't know if they're coming or going. So it's a good luck symbol, saying that nobody can track you down or know your next move. So there it is again. So these are a bunch of the different pieces that I've been working on, and I've been playing with ceramics and concrete and making a bunch of different using these types of glaze pencils that I never knew existed, to my friend Chris Casey introduced me to them. It's pretty cool. So you could literally draw on ceramics, fire them, and all of a sudden they're all of a sudden then you can fire them. It's pretty cool. And then here's my main gallery.
Yeah, this is the space I love.
So yeah, this is like, my family and I built this spot, and anybody like the family or anybody in the Pueblo is invited to come and use it for like baptisms or marriages or whatever. But it's just pretty cool to have a big studio to work in and to have gatherings for it. So these are some of the prints from the Tamarind lithos that we created in Albuquerque. And they're available at the Gallery Hojo, and you could find all the links and all of my social networks, and also the website.
Oh, Virgil, someone asked a really great question. What are your first memories of exposure outside of the Pueblo, which influenced your interest in futuristic themes and mediums?
I got caught up with it like during this first Star Wars movie. I think that was like in 1977 or something. But I mean, I definitely learned like all the different characters' names, their spaceships, how they looked, how they dressed. So this is how you see what I'm doing now, is to write storytelling, a movie script about the Pueblo Revolt, but incorporating all these different types of characters, and basically to educate the world about the Pueblo Revolt and what happened to our people, and you telling the whole story in 2 different time dimensions. So this is why you see all these futuristic characters and how they're all coming together to tell the story of the revolt.
And I see the glass piece. Didn't you go to Venice and worked at one of the glass workshops over there?
This is actually at the Corning Museum of Glass in New York.
Oh, I'm sorry. I put you over in Venice, but
I want to go there too.
Yeah, right. Me too. We'll go together.
Yeah, definitely. And like a lot of these pieces too, like the contemporary clay, these ones were fired over at the Wrights Ranch. I was able to do a residency there in northern Arizona. And it was just really awesome to be able to work in Don Wright's studio and to really push myself to, without leaning on having to use the paint work to give designs. And I've actually just carved into them and learned this whole different type and aesthetic of making ceramics. So it's just ever evolving, and it's really fun to do that.
This is a great question for someone who doesn't know how you form your pots. Is it done by hand or do you use a wheel? So how do you create it?
Yeah, all of these are coil and scrape method. So it's like, that's how I was taught growing up. I tried the wheel, but I'm not very good at it. So each one of these pieces are hand formed coil and scrape method.
Wonderful.
So some of them have been soda fired, like this guy's been soda fired. And there's so many different textures that you get, like it looks like it's sweating up close. And that's just all the soda ash doing its thing. And once it goes through a firing, a couple of days, super hot cone 10, and all of a sudden you get these really cool textures on it.
Now, you were up in Santa Fe a couple days ago. Which pieces did you take back?
I had to get this piece, Toki. So she's back now, at home. So I mean, she's been gone for a whole year. So I'm like, yes, she's back. But yeah,
she's
these
probably
are all
happy to be back too.
Yeah, all these characters are, you can learn more about all of them and who they are, what they're doing. But I have created 19 different sets of characters that represent 19 pueblos that are left in New Mexico today. So this is what, who they all represent. And it's just telling the story of the revolt in 2 different time dimensions. So you can learn more about all these characters, their types of ships that they fly, the runners and the future, the gliders. There's all different, the translator army. So these were some of the fashion that was at the Museum of Contemporary Native Art in Santa Fe. So Toki, and it was a group show that was called Indigenous Futurisms. And it's good to have them back at home.
Yeah, I think it's just wonderful what you've done with the Pueblo Revolt narrative. Like, so much of your work is focused on that and really educating people about the revolts, because so many tribes have their stories. Cherokee, we have our Trail of Tears. However, there are people who aren't familiar with other people's tribal plights and issues of genocide. So the things you're doing are wonderful, bringing this to light and creating a full circle of healing.
Yeah, most people don't know about the Pueblo Revolt. When you ask them about it, they're like, what is that? And it's America's first revolution, but they don't call it that because of the genocide that happened to our ancestors. And, I wanted to, it's not taught in schools, it's not in our textbooks. So I felt the need that I was brought here and to tell the story of the revolt using art. So this is what you see through a recurring theme, and it'll always be about the revolt and praying that the tradition of making and using traditional Cochiti methods and materials stays alive, but also encouraging any of the younger Indigenous people, it doesn't matter if they're Indigenous, but to really pick up a type of art. And like I said earlier, it saved my life, and it kept me out of trouble. So art is awesome.
Well, one last question. This one's kind of fun. Do you have some pieces that you are so attached to or protective of that you would not sell?
I do. Like, I have a collection of our mom's pieces, and I try to collect a lot of our other masters that are not here any longer in the Pueblo. And I try to make pieces and go to auctions and collect them, just so that in the future we could have them here and available for the next gen and the Cochiti youth to come and look at it and have access to that resources and different types of art and know what kind of art our people created. So there's a lot of them that I won't let go of or try to keep in the family and in Cochiti. It's like some of those old pieces from our grandmothers and other older folk from Cochiti.
Great. Now I said, wait, that was the last question, but people are still like throwing some more out there, which is fabulous. This one's a great one too. I'm curious how you were influenced by the nightclub scene and how that's influenced your work.
Oh, definitely. That was like, you know, I was able to travel a lot when I was younger. I mean, I still do now, but I traveled when I was younger. And it was kind of cool because I would save my money when I would sell a piece of artwork. And I take a couple of my friends and we go to New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, and it was just going out there to get influence and get inspirations from the big cities, go to the museums, go to art scenes, go to nightclubs. So that's when you see a lot of the pieces that I did make, or I still make, like that have club clothing and leather and bondage. And that's just another way of using this old historic way of Cochiti people telling stories and making like a timeline of where we're at. So it all falls into traditional Cochiti work, no matter what the subject is.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Virgil. Let's see. I think that kind of concludes our discussion. And I just want to thank everyone for tuning in and taking some of your evening to all learn a bit about Virgil. And I hope after this, you all are now Virgil fans. And so there's the links for Virgil's website. And of course, we just look forward to things going forward. So thank you, Virgil, for your time. And thank you, Lowe Art Museum.
Yeah, definitely. Everybody take care out there. Thanks again for the opportunity. Lowe Museum, everybody, and please take care of each other, mask up. We can get this, we can get through this. What's going on in the world together. Let the healing begin. Watch out for each other out there.